And we are live on YouTube. Happy Sunday. Happy, for those in the United States, happy Independence Day. Happy 4th of July. And
Yay, happy.
happy day. Happy Sunday. How
Yes,
are you? How are you?
I am doing good, and I love this Sunday Live topic
Mhm.
today. It's
Yes.
about understanding the power of thought and why we need to pay more attention to what goes on in our minds. And we are going to focus a lot on the connection between our minds and the outer world, and why. I mean, why does it matter what we're thinking? It
Mm,
matters because it creates matter. And that's what we're going to explore today. And I think that, or I hope that everyone will enjoy this and
yes.
uh, leave with a bigger understanding of the connection between their minds and the quantum field or the invisible infinite source out there. So
Right.
I hope that everyone will feel the connection there after this conversation.
Yes, exactly. And it's so what I love about what we're talking about, the power of thought, is because it's ever present with us to not control, but to take authority over, take
Hmm.
stock. So we're never being swept down a current. We can always remember that our thoughts create our reality, and we can pause at any moment and take captive
Hmm.
of this thought and say, is this I always like when you do these videos, or when we do stuff together, like you look at your thought, and I'm like, oh, I love that illustration. Like,
Yes.
look at it, I look at it, and I think that's such a beautiful model, because when we look at it, like, do I want this? Yes or no? If it's no, release it.
You know, when you're able to imagine or visualize that you're looking at your thought, you immediately understand that you are not the thought.
Mm,
You're the one looking at it. You're the one exploring it. You're the one paying attention to it. Because I've asked myself this question so many times. What are thoughts? I mean, what? How would you describe a thought? And the closest that I can come is that it is potential energy form.
mm,
So
yes.
it's there, it's lingering in the infinite field. And unless I pay attention to it, it will stay there. But as soon as I pay attention to it, I give it form, or I give it permission to take form in my reality.
Mm, yeah.
So when I say, we look at our thoughts,
Yes.
it is to understand that I am not the thought. I am just looking at it. I had a
Mm,
I had so many problems with understanding this concept while meditating. You know how they say, allow the thoughts to go like clouds. And I go, I can't. They're they're asking me to think about them. They're asking me to pick them out of the quantum field and look at them because there's so much energy in them. Until I understood that it is potential, they're not real until I focus on them. They're not real until I allow them into my reality. It's not about controlling, it's about understanding the nature of thought. And when you do that, you don't need to control anything. You have a deeper understanding what is thought and what is this quantum field or the reality outside of me.
yes.
And yeah, understanding the connection between the two and knowing that a thought is just a potential energy form and
Yes.
it takes form as soon as you start thinking of it. That is, I think, the most important thing to start with, and then explore the rest in a way.
That's right. That's right. Well, every time we talk about thoughts, I always pull this radio out.
Yes.
And this radio is like our body. It is
Hmm.
indifferent but capable of picking up any channel it's dialed
Hmm.
into. And so I was, in preparation of today, thinking of thoughts as different densities of liquid. So if we poured
Hmm.
olive oil and water into a glass and we let it sit for 24 hours, eventually it would perfectly collect where the water is and where the oil is. And I was
Hmm.
thinking about thoughts in lower thought forms, or thoughts that are not uplifting, of high
Hmm.
vibe, high virtue. We can dip down into that glass, and some people stay in such
Hmm.
dense liquid thought forms that it's sticky and they can't. think of that pure crystalline water at the very top where there's
Mhm.
free flowing. And
Mhm.
this radio reminds me of that, is that I am the one who's choosing which dial, but the frequencies, the sounds that will come out of this
Mhm.
exist already, just like the thoughts exist already. We are the
Mhm.
ones choosing which frequency, which dial we will
Mhm.
allow to be broadcast in here. And then most of the time, if we're not careful, uttered out of our
Yes.
mouths. So, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. It's about the frequencies. And if, I mean, we need to understand, what does that mean, that it is about the frequencies?
Mm,
It means that everything is energy, and
yes.
energy is in motion all the time. So if everything is energy, then the difference between me and you is just the frequency. It's the it's it's the specific frequency that I'm broadcasting, which will manifest itself as me, and you're able to decode it with your sight and ears and all the things that we're doing here in this physical reality. You're
Yes.
able to decode that energetic form as me, and you have a specific energy frequency or a sequence of energy within you, and I can decode who you are because it's different from mine. But we're still made of energy, so we're made of the same stuff, but that stuff is vibrating in different frequencies so that we
Mhm.
can differ from each other, so to speak. And it's the same thing with sand and water. It's the same stuff vibrating at a different frequency. So if we understand that, then we can understand that there are layers in all of this, that thoughts are of a higher frequency than a physical body, but it's still energy. It's still one and the same thing. Matter is energy in a slowed down frequency. Energy, I mean, there is no difference between matter and energy. This is, Einstein says this, there is no difference between matter and energy, only the frequency of it, the velocity of the frequency, so to speak. So what differs us is the frequency.
Mm.
And when we know that, we also know that with our free will, we are able to dial up or dial down our frequency.
Right.
And that was what you were talking about when you're,
Yes.
if you are in a lower state of being, your mind is heavy and you don't know how to get out of it. Your free will is this dialing thing saying, okay, I need to heighten my frequency, looking for something that will help me elevate myself so that I can be in that crystal water, so to speak.
Right.
So, understanding that everything is energy, we have to start with that. Everything is energy, and the energy, there is a connection between outer, in quotation marks, and
Mm.
inner realities. And this is a perfect match between them. And when I was a child, I've told this story so many times, but it is so profound for me. I was 11 years old when I, in an attempt to fall asleep, couldn't fall asleep. So I was thinking about, how big is the universe, where does it end, and how can I explore the borders of the universe? And I couldn't. So I thought, all right, I'll run to the window and I'll look at the stars, because in my mind the stars only continue to multiply themselves because my mind is infinite. So I
Mm.
run to the window and I look outside and I see the stars. I close my eyes and I still see the stars. And that's when it hit me. I can see the stars in my mind because they're made of the same stuff as the stars outside of my mind. That is the connection. The outside world is a mirror of your inner world.
Yes.
Now, the things that we don't like come from the unconscious mind because it is vibrating on a specific frequency. And the things that we want, our desires, which we are aware of and pursuing, they vibrate on a higher frequency, and we will recognize them as things that we want in our reality. So it's easier to see the connection there because you can say, I desired it into being. But the things that we don't like, we say, how did this happen? Well, it is a frequency that is dominating in your subconscious mind, and the quantum field, this formless intelligence out there,
Mm.
will give you back the same frequency because it's the same one and the same thing. The connection
Yes.
is there between your mind and your outer reality. And this is why it is so important to pay attention to what we allow into this empty
Yes.
space in our
Yes.
mind, this room in our mind. What are we inviting in? What are we allowing? What are we unconsciously allowing to dwell there? So
Yes.
it's really important to understand that.
I think the being conscious of
Mm,
what's in our mind, realizing that we are the ones allowing whatever's in our
mhm,
mind is such a critical idea that I don't hear taught anywhere except what we're talking about. I mean, I know there's some, but it's not the mass narrative that's being taught to humanity, that we are to take our thoughts captive and hold them all and look at, does this bring life, love,
mhm,
virtue? Is this, if this became true, would I love this world? Or if this became true, would it be a terrible world to live in? And that all
mhm,
resides in us looking at our thoughts, nothing external, always dwelling in, where did this thought come from? Am I in a high frequency? Because this radio is going to
mhm,
broadcast whatever channel that it's tuned to. It doesn't care. It's not like
mm,
that's good sounding music or not good sounding music, or I agree with that person or not. It's
mm,
just where that dial is, it will
mm,
broadcast. Our thoughts are just like those radio frequencies. They exist. We can, if we're not intentional with what comes in, then we won't be intentional with what comes out. And I think the lowest vibe, the lowest frequency you can be in is unconscious awake and just
mm,
going along. And I think that's why I hope I've talked about the great awakening, is this awakening to the vitality that is within us to choose
mm,
not just our physical action, but our thoughts that reside. And if they're good
mm,
thoughts, cultivate them, water them, grow them. But if they're thoughts that cause, take the air out of our sails or make us restrict our breathing,
mm.
let them go.
Yes, by scrutinizing them and asking, is this really true? Can this be really true? And usually it isn't when you start
Yes.
scrutinizing them, knowing that if they have a negative vibe, then you need to look at them and find the brightest side of that.
Yeah.
It's not about, crazy positivity where you hide and don't want to see the truth in the looking at it and saying, okay, so where's the benefit? Because the most important question is to ask ourselves, do we live in a benevolent universe, or
Mhm.
is there evil here that is prevailing? And it can never be so, because all that is contains all that is. It is unconditionally accepting, which means that that is true love. It accepts everything. It cannot be that evil is that essence. The
Mm.
essence, or this formless intelligence, has to be something that will allow everything, which means that that is the unconditional love for everything, acceptance and love for everything. So there has to be a benefit with everything that comes towards us. So
Mm.
it's a question of understanding that what you look for in this intelligence, this formless intelligence, you will receive. It
Mm.
will not ask you, are you sure? Do you want this?
Right.
Because that is your responsibility to look and say, do I want this?
Mm.
Sometimes when I ask a question, when I fall asleep to my consciousness, and I'm asleep and my ego is going around judging people, and I ask myself a question, how do these people think? And I go, do I really want to know that? No, I actually don't want to know that. So I just shut that down. That's not
Mm.
a question that I want to pose. This is my ego doing it, and I don't want it. So I pull back and I say, no, I don't want that. Because I know as a child, everything I asked for, since my parents couldn't, answer the questions to me, I had this system where I just put the question out there, and I knew that within a day or two, I would get the answer.
Mm.
Miraculously, maybe I read it in a book, or someone will say it on the television, or someone will be talking and I pass by and I can hear it. It's like synchronicity will always bring me the answer to every single question.
Mm.
Now, do you really want to ask all the questions that you're asking? For me, it is to restrict myself from saying, how are these people thinking? What evil is doing this? Do I really want to know that? I don't. I actually do not want to look at it at all. So
Mm.
I just pull back and I say, no, I don't want the answer to this question. Because if I can ask a question, then I already know the answer because I can formulate a question, right?
Yeah.
So I do not need to have an answer to that.
Yeah.
I can ask myself, what is the solution to this problem? How can I go around this? What is the brightest side of this? Those are the questions that I should be asking, not the other ones, because the universe will say, question, we need to bring an answer here, and it puts it in front of you. And you don't want to look at that answer, maybe. So becoming more aware of where do the where does the thought come from? Is it curiosity? Is it love? Is it joyful? If it's not, then don't go there. Don't. There is no reason, because you will have a perfect match of your frequency mirrored back to you as a reality. Always. There is no flaws in the system. It is perfect. You know how people say, oh, I'm in an attracting mode, or
Yeah.
I want to attract. You're attracting things all the time, or actually you're allowing them through you into this reality. And there is no off button. Even when you're sleeping, you're doing this. So becoming aware of the the frequency that you're in. You know, you can say one thing and then think another thing and believe a third thing,
Yeah.
and the universe will mix those things and it will give you something you don't understand why you have it, because your thoughts, emotions, and beliefs are not congruent.
Okay, so here's the I'm so glad you brought this up.
Yeah.
There's a verse in the Bible that says, as a man thinketh in his heart,
Yes.
so is he. And there's been many
Yes.
teachers that have said, as a man thinketh, so is he. But the original text is, as a man thinketh in his heart. And someone thinks
Mm-hmm.
in our heart. And I've always thought, and then there's some science around the heart actually will activate before the mind gets a thought, and
Mm-hmm.
maybe the heart has its own brain. But what you're
Mm-hmm.
saying is such a beautiful thing, is congruency.
Yes.
If you say one thing, think another, and believe another, the universe is going to give an amalgamation perhaps, or some sort of non-clear answer, which leaves people in confusion maybe.
Yes, it will be unclear to you because you're not aligned. It's
Right.
not unclear on the side of the universe or this formless
Right.
intelligence out there. It is perfectly clear because it is very subtle. It will tap into the exact frequency of who you are, including subconscious and conscious things that you're doing. So your belief might be subconscious, your thought might be very conscious, and then the feeling might be something that you're not really in tune with. You don't get
Mm.
it. So you see how it can create mayhem in your life and you don't know why it's like that. So asking yourself, why do I believe these things?
Mm.
Is this in alignment with what I want to explore in the future or in the now moment? So intention is really important, because that's why I say intention bends the fabric of the universe. Well, the fabric of the universe is this formless intelligence. If maybe we need to clarify this formless intelligence is actually the quantum field of possibilities or probabilities. And if you look at a particle, it is 99.9999999% energy and 0.000000001 matter.
Mm.
Or we could say information about where this thing is positioned in the quantum field. So
Mm.
it's
Yeah.
practically nothing. And unless you think of it, unless there is an observer, it stays in a wave form. As soon as there is an observer, it turns into a particle, or it becomes a particle.
Yeah.
When there is no observer, it continues to be the waveform. So it's all going in and out, disappearing and appearing all the time.
Mm.
That is how unstable this reality is. It is perfectly stable from the quantum field perspective because it knows exactly what it is doing. It is infinite intelligence doing this. From our
Mm.
perspective, it might seem like, oh my God, this is unstable. If I'm not looking at it, it's not there. Exactly. Because the physical reality we see, is dependent on an observer. It cannot exist unless you look at it. So that's the connection between your mind. You will be seeing what your mind asks for in the quantum wave, so to speak. So you, when you look at it, it becomes a particle and it becomes reality. So when I'm looking at you, you become a reality in my reality.
Yes. Yes.
And that's how we co-create this reality. So you and I are co-creating this because you can see me and I can see you.
Right.
And we're co-creating it. So we become particles in each other's reality when we are focused on each other. So it's about this formless intelligence reacting to your attention, conscious or unconscious attention, because it's really important to remember this, that it's not just about what you're thinking about. It's the unconscious stuff, the beliefs and the emotions that are actually the fuel in this.
Which is why if I think of you, you're real again in thought form. It's the same thing as if I'm seeing you. If we think like we could hang up today and then I think what a great time that was, but I bring you forth back in my thoughts, you're as real in my thoughts as you are. I mean, technically, even in this digital form that we've never been in person, right? Even though you respond to me, I could also probably create that you're responding to me in my thoughts, which is what this quantum reality is.
Yes. It's also how I have come to understand what oneness is. Everything you see sees you. Everything you hear talks to you. Everything you touch touches you back. There is no space, no empty space. There's energy between us and information fields. And it just depends on how far this information field goes. So my thoughts are, I mean, I can think of you and you can say, I have to call Gordana because somewhere in this quantum field, we've connected on a place beyond time and space, the physical reality. And you call me and I say, wow, I was just thinking about you.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
That is how synchronicity works. But I think that the entire quantum field, the entire formless intelligence works through synchronicity. And this is the intelligence, and it is unfathomable for us. We cannot understand that intelligence because it knows everything. So this is why I say the universe doesn't just hear what you say, it knows what you think, feel, and believe all the time. And I'm whispering like Biden here, but all the time.
That's right. That's
I didn't want to do that. It was creepy. No, but
that's right.
But all the time, even when you're asleep, this connection is never broken because you are made of the same stuff as this intelligence is. You might say, if I were a really religious person, I would say that I'm a thought in God's mind. God's mind would be this formless intelligence, and I would be a particle, a collapsed waveform in that field, because I am God's thought. God thought me into being. There is nothing that is man-made in this reality that hasn't been a thought form first, and then it is created into this physical reality. It's born into this reality through me. It's the same thing. I am a thought in God's mind. How can that be wrong? It can't be wrong, right?
This is funny that just staying on this path a little bit. After Noah's flood, the third flood, or I teach that it's the third flood, it says that, and God remembered Noah. And so I always think that's a funny thing. It's a funny concept. Like, oh, all of a sudden he brought him back into his thought, and then the waters receded and all this. But what was Noah didn't exist for a while, I guess, or, it was just on his own. And then God remembered Noah. And it's a fascinating concept of the all that is bringing forth one person. So all of a sudden I'm like, man, I want to be thought of well, or I want my thoughts to align to that thought, that highest thought.
Yes, you want to be the best version of yourself because it is a potential within you. It is in wave form until you start paying attention to it, which becomes your reality. It becomes matter to you. It matters to you. So if you do not see the potential in you, then who is going to see it? It comes through you. You can be inspired by someone who would say, Lucas, you're a phenomenal human being. I see this and that and this in you. They collapse this waveform within you because they give you an image, and you can tap into that image, and then you can start broadcasting that image to the infinite field of possibilities, and it goes, here you go, you can see it, wow, we're on a roll, give me more of that.
Yeah.
That is what confidence is, but it's based on belief, and it's based on being able to find it within you. If there is a belief that you cannot find it because it's not there, because someone told you it isn't there when you were a child, then you're not tapped into that, or you're always tapped into your full potential. But there is a an obstacle in the way, and the obstacle is an illusion put there by someone else. The potential is always there. The full potential is always there. Always. It's
So good. So good.
so it can't be any other way, any other way, because the quantum field, or this formless intelligence, or all that is, I like to call it all that there is, all
Yes.
that is, because it contains everything.
Yes.
So when I do workshop, I describe it as all that is compact darkness. And
Hmm.
it's not a dangerous darkness. It is just darkness because it's so full of everything. Everything that is, will be, and has been is packed into this darkness.
Hmm.
And you are the light. In your forehead, you have a light. And
Yep.
wherever you pay attention to, where you put this light, in this darkness, you will be able to see things. You
Hmm.
will be able to see relationships, things. Your reality becomes that place in the darkness. That is how important your thoughts are, because your thoughts are, they are this light seeking out the potential out there. And the light, the intensity of that light is dependent on your confidence and what you believe about yourself and your reality.
Right.
So wherever you focus that light, it will give you exactly what is under that light. It matches your frequency.
Hmm.
Or sometimes I describe mind as water, and this water is connected to the universal mind, this infinite field of possibilities. So if you're moving in the water, let's say that your mind is all over the place, then everything out there will be like a storm, because it is connected. It has to, every action will be a reaction on the outside. But
Hmm.
if you calm yourself, everything calms down, and you can see your own image in that calm surface of it.
Hmm.
So it behaves like water. It's the connection between you and that quantum field out there is unbreakable. It is always there.
Right.
And the power of it, I'm sorry, it
No,
is
no.
in what you allow into your mind, into your beliefs, into your emotions, where you dwell,
Hmm.
consciously or unconsciously.
The it becomes really fun when we have this perspective, because everything becomes exploration and we become the
Yes.
captain of our own ship. And plant medicine, I've talked on our lives quite a bit about plant medicine that I've done in
Mm.
different ceremonies that I've sat in. But one of the ceremonies I sat in one time, I've mentioned this on a live, I had this thought, oh, I forgot. And it just came to me like someone was talking to me,
Mhm.
but I could only hear my response to it, that, oh, I forgot. And then I was like, what did I forget? And I realized I forgot that every molecule sacrificed
Mhm.
itself
Yes.
for me, and my molecules that make me
Mm.
sacrifice themselves to make me. And I forgot to
Mhm.
have gratitude for the matter.
Mhm.
But this is taking it, and this has been so helpful, because in that same ceremony, I also realized that the air is something. I could see the air, I could play with the air. There is not nothing. This is everything
Mhm.
right here. This, what we call air, hydrogen, oxygen,
Mm.
whatever gases are in the air, frequencies are in the air. There's so much density in the air that we
Mm.
walk through. So we all are connected. And seeing that reality really has changed everything for me, because I've been
Mm.
so conscious in the now moment, understanding that everything has sacrificed itself to have gratitude for all that is, because all that is simply my awareness of the experience of all that is. I am part of this. It is part
Mhm.
of me.
Yes, absolutely. And the sacrifice, it's actually a key word here. And most people will say, oh, sacrifice, such a negative word. But actually, it isn't. It's about every choice you have to make in your life. Why change is so painful for us is because we need to make choices. And when you make choices, you have to sacrifice everything else for the choice that you make. So
Hmm.
everything else is a sacrifice. But if you are aware of why you're making that choice, is it a choice which you are making because you know that it will become beneficial for you, then the sacrifice doesn't feel so heavy.
Right.
But if you're making a choice which is actually not your choice, it is made from ego, or someone else told you, or it's not aligned with your highest self, it will
Hmm.
feel like a really horrible sacrifice, and it will feel like it is draining you of life. So
Hmm.
you might say that I, in order to be me in this physical reality, since I start out as all that is, because that is what I am part of, and then all that is, or God, has this idea of wanting to explore reality through me, then I have to sacrifice all that is. I have to sacrifice the knowledge of all that is, the knowledge of where I come from, the knowledge of my true potential, in order to focus myself into this body and then explore the smaller version of that and find back to all that is. All that I have sacrificed, I have to find back to it. That's the path of my life. But it's supposed to be fun, because we are doing this not because we are forced to, but because we know that we will explore so much contrast in this world that it is worth it. We want to do it. The sacrifice is only made here. We can't there is no sacrifice anywhere else. It's only made here. And the choice between this or that, the polarity in this reality, it's connected to that sacrifice.
Hmm.
And just finding easier choices, being more aligned with who we are, we won't experience so much pain from the sacrifice if
Right.
we're aligned with who we are and understand that I have to make a choice. That doesn't mean that I don't care about anything else, but I need to make this choice. Not being afraid of making a choice, using our free will, guiding ourselves through this landscape that we've created here with our mind.
This is so cool. Okay, two
Yeah.
things. I love this. So, um, there's an old preacher who died in 1994, old British preacher, Leonard Ravenhill, who said, the altar that receives no sacrifice receives no fire. And so
Mhm.
if we look at ourselves as the altar, and if we don't sacrifice, we don't have any fire, that light, that
Mhm.
aish, they say in Hebrew, the aish, that cultivated
Mhm.
power, the chi, whatever,
Mhm.
form, that pep in our step,
Mm.
or
Yeah,
what.
the fire you're talking about is the passion here in life, the
Yes.
curiosity, the courage, the things that make us take another step in our lives, where we do not stagnate, where we do not, stagnate into our comfort zone. This is why everybody says all the growth is outside of your comfort zone, because you need to sacrifice your comfort zone. You
Yes.
need to sacrifice the fear. You need to sacrifice the ego in order to step over that border from your comfort zone to grow. That is the only way you can grow in your consciousness. So the sacrifice is not, it's not about a negative thing. For me, for instance, sacrifice might be that when I am let's say that I'm in an argument and
Mm.
it's with someone I love, and I want to win that. Well, I need to sacrifice my ego, and then I can grow because I can see the whole picture in a different way. So being willing to sacrifice my ego, or the smaller mind, or the lower self, being
Yes.
willing to sacrifice that in this reality feels like ego thinks it's going to die when you do that, and it isn't, because ego is an illusion anyway. You can create it and recreate it all the time. You are
Right.
not an illusion, but your
Right.
ego and everything else here is. So this means that you can recreate everything because you are the source doing all this.
Mhm. Yes.
So it is so beautiful to understand it on an intellectual level. And then when I'm in emotions, I forget all this. I think we all
Exactly.
do.
Totally. That energy in motion is flying everywhere. Like,
Oh,
yeah,
everywhere. And I
yeah.
have to gather it and look at it and say, why did I do this? Because I was not in tune with the alignment of who I truly am, even though I understand it. So
Hmm.
another thing which is beautiful when we understand how we are creating this reality, the quantum field or this intelligence out there will not punish us when we make a mistake,
Hmm.
because it knows that it can recreate everything all the time. So
Yes.
it says, are you sure that you want this? And you go, no, I'm so sorry that I did that. And then you forgive yourself and you forgive everyone else that was included in this, and it disappears in the quantum field.
Mhm.
It goes back to where it was, and it's no longer yours, because
Yes.
the forgiveness, it's like a magic spell. It just releases everything.
Yes.
So actually thoughts are like magic spells, and you need to focus on the magic that you want to create in this
Yes.
reality,
Yes.
and it starts here always.
Um, you've said this before, I think on one of our lives. Um, what's the character in X-Men or X-Men? Um, was it Cycle? I don't know. The guy who wears glasses to control his eyes is fire, but when he keeps his
Oh
glasses
yes, I know.
on,
Yeah.
it shoots everywhere. But when he puts those glasses on, it focuses and he can direct that
Yes.
energy. I think we've talked about this at some point, and
Yeah.
I don't remember the character's name, but that's how I see our thoughts. The energy can take us everywhere. I mean, but when we are captive of our thoughts, we are choosing where to direct all the energy
Mm,
that we want to flow. And that's
mm,
why emotions can sometimes overwhelm us, because it's a lot of energy coming in. And
mm,
sometimes it takes some time to, that's why it's so important to have a practice of meditation, mindfulness,
mhm,
breathing, something that can bring us back to,
mm,
okay, I feel all the emotion. Now let me check my thoughts and let me move through this.
mm.
Um, yeah.
Yes, it is important to be aware of what goes on in your mind, because I usually see my mind as a vision board, as an internal vision board. And if I would think about it all the time, I would never, ever put something that is horrible in there. Because why would I put something horrible, the picture of my horrible boss in my head all the time? But that is what we do when we worry, when we fall prey to drama. When you do that, you allow someone else to put images in your mind, in your creative mind, which is connected to the specific frequency that you're broadcasting into the quantum field. And if you're not aware of what images you have there, then you will not be aware of what kind of reality you are creating. The more things that you don't want in your reality you explore or experience, the more that is a sign of you not being aligned with who you truly are. And the more you're allowing things that are not your true frequency to be broadcasted, because you can't identify yourself in them. As soon as you know who you are and that you have a choice, you can start
Mm.
choosing. Do you want to answer with ego? Do you want to explore fear? Is it true for you? Becoming much, much more attentive, becoming aware of what it is that you're allowing in, because you are neutral actually, and the things out there are neutral. It is what we believe and the emotions we put into this that color it all, that gives it the form that it takes.
Yes.
So just because, and your thoughts and your emotions and your beliefs are actually tools to craft this reality with. On an everyday basis, it's like you say, it's about becoming more mindful and focused on the brightest side of whatever comes towards you. That doesn't mean that you become someone's emotional doormat, or that you become gullible, that people can trick you into stuff. When you are aligned with who you are, you can actually see other people's beliefs. You can actually see their thoughts. You can actually see where they have fallen asleep. And that can help you navigate through dangers in your life in a much better way than being in an angry state of being all the time.
Going back to sacrifice, it's such a, it's not a term, it's not even a word that we use in modern vernacular too often. Like, what is sacrificing? What does that mean? In ancient civilization, sacrifice was like a common thing. They were sacrificing fruits, vegetables, animals, all sorts of different things. And what you're talking about, such a beautiful way, is we are sacrificing what we choose to look at versus we're sacrificing everything we're not choosing to look at. And there's a verse in the Bible. I'm finding, I'm on this journey right now of understanding what this book that has existed for a long time, an ancient book that's used, I think, improperly and is read improperly. But there's a verse that Paul wrote, I beseech you, therefore, brethren, by the mercies of God, that you present your bodies a living sacrifice, holy and acceptable unto God, which is your reasonable service. And I've always looked at the holy part, like holiness. And that's where I think the church is like holiness, holiness, holiness. But to have the awareness that I'm sacrificing every moment. This is a sacrifice. I'm sacrificing what's behind me outside this door. And I think when we're conscious that we're always sacrificing.
Yes.
You know, that's, I think, the thing. The teaching is to know you're always sacrificing. What do you want to sacrifice? And what are you willing to put your attention towards? And what are you willing to let go? It all comes back to the thoughts. It's what we're focused on. I think that's a really important lost narrative. We're constantly sacrificing. The question is, what do you want to sacrifice?
Exactly, becoming more aware of, because as long as you're breathing this air, you live in a reality of polarity, and there will be choices made. It's like this thing that I'm wearing here. It's a French lily, and it is about the middle path where there's always a choice to be made. You have to make a choice at literally every single moment of your life. I think that what you're sacrificing is all the things that you are not choosing. You're actually allowing them to go back to their holy state, which is all that is. So it's about allowing it to go into the holy space where it came from, because you're choosing something in this reality that you want to explore. So the sacrifice doesn't have to be a negative thing. It's about where your attention is and holding it there, because you have put yourself there. It's an aware choice that you're making. I think that the painful sacrifices are made with the choices that are unconscious or subconscious, or I don't even know what to say, when they're made from ego, where your soul isn't allowed to be present when you're making the choices. When you feel that you have to make a certain choice, you don't want to, but you have to make it. That is a sacrifice, and it's the negative side of sacrifice. But if you look at it from the positive side of sacrifice, this means that if I make a choice, I am willing to allow everything else to reside, to go back to where it came from. This means that you will travel lightly. There is no heaviness in that. If you are aware of the sacrifice that you're making, there is no heaviness in that. You can make the wrong choice. You can make the wrong sacrifice. But as I say, the quantum field, or this intelligence out there, this formless intelligence source, will always say, let's redo that, because atonement and forgiveness, and that is why these things are holy wherever they're made. It is holy ground where they're made, because you're sacrificing your ego and the urge to be right, the urge to win, you sacrifice that and you stand in alignment with who you truly are.
Mm.
Because we don't have to win, we don't have to be right all the time. We're here
Right.
to explore
Yes.
the actually the opposite of that, because that's the contrast to it. So just allowing allowing our awareness to become more intentional.
Mm.
That's actually what it is all about. It's about telling the universe, I have an intention here. As soon as you do that, the universe loves that. It
Mm.
goes, oh, there's an intention. Let's bring it there.
Yeah.
And especially when it is a conscious intention, because we are actually sending out intentions all the time. They're just not conscious.
Mm.
This is where this notion of be careful what you wish for, you might get it all, comes from. This is deep knowledge of the mechanism in this reality, how our mind is connected to the things giving us presence in this reality, the quantum field.
Right.
Be careful how you state your wish, because it might just be what you get.
Hmm.
Intention is all.
Which is why sovereignty is
Mm,
so. It,
yes.
if I could bless everyone on this planet, it is to wake everyone up to their own sovereignty. That they,
Mm,
because what you said is so important. When we lack sovereignty, we are
mm,
constantly in obligation to another. So we are on the negative side of sacrifice, and the
mhm.
ego mind will say, I'll gladly take your sacrifice. I'll glad. So the sociopaths and the negative forms, or those that exploring the darker side of this reality, will say to those on the negative side of sacrifice, yeah, sure, keep trying
Keep
to please
going.
me. Keep
Mm,
keep doing it. Keep trying to please me. I'll let you
mm,
know when I'm pleased. Oh, they'll let me know when I'm pleased. And you're constantly in this like trying to
mm.
please everyone. And when we come in to that sovereignty space, we can look everyone as equal and say, yes, no, no, not now, present,
Maybe later.
maybe
Yes.
later.
Mm,
This is the power that
yeah.
we are here to, I think, fully step into.
Mm. It's about understanding how this frequency or how this mechanism actually works. As we said, it taps into what you believe about reality, your emotions, and your thoughts about reality.
Mm.
It taps into the frequency of that. So let's say that you believe that someone has power over you and you have to do what they tell you to do, otherwise something will happen to you. Well, you are sending out a frequency of dependence and fear, and the universe has to give you back a reality which will mirror dependence and fear.
Mm.
It will also mirror back a reality which you cannot identify yourself in, because you are not born here to feel dependency and fear. You're born to release yourself from dependency and fear. So if you are allowing that to become your truth, in quotation marks, then you will be creating a reality that is not based on your true frequency, but on the oppressor's true frequency, the ones that are trying to control you. That
Yes.
is who the reality you will be broadcasting into
Yes.
it, and you will be seeing it. And let's say that there's hundreds of thousands of people doing exactly the same thing. That is how a solid reality is created, where everybody feels dependent
Mm.
and fearful. So you have to step out of it and say, what is it that I want to explore in this reality? What is my true frequency? And then find the other ones that has the same frequency
Yes.
and
Yes.
start creating a different version of reality, which is more congruent with who you are. I mean, I don't know anybody anywhere. If you would ask anyone on the street here and say, do you love war? Everybody would say, no, goodness, why would I? This is horrible. 99.9% of the entire population on earth would say, we don't want war. And yet here we are. There's war
Constantly.
almost yes, constantly, and not everywhere, but there is war. So
Mm.
this means that there is a belief system that is creating this, which is absolutely not congruent with what anyone thinks.
Mm.
But if we think that it is going on and it has to happen because they are in power and we're not, that's a belief system. That is a belief
Mm.
manifesting itself into this reality.
Yes.
Because the quantum field is not mean, it's just doing what you're asking it to do. So becoming more aware of, okay, so what do I want? When you start asking questions, what do I want? That is how you come into this sovereignty of who you truly are, becoming the sovereign being. When you start asking the question, what do I want and why do I want it? And if you say, I want security, well, then I say, go to prison because that is where security is.
That's right. That's right.
You want to be free.
Hmm.
We mix things up in our head when it comes to these things. I want to be free. I want to be able to explore things. I want everyone to be free and be able to explore whatever they want to explore in this reality. That is a human birthright, by the way.
Yes.
So becoming more aware of that there is a space in your head and your heart, in your body actually, which will be like a broadcasting signal to the space out there, meaning this intelligence, formless intelligence. And when they meet, a physical reality appears.
Hmm.
And that's where we live, in this physical reality, which we are co creating. We might even say that we're dreaming it into existence because it happens in our minds.
Yes. Yes.
But it isn't so much dreaming. We're actually fearing, dreading, daydreaming, loving it into existence. So it's both the negative and the positive things that we're putting into this mirror here.
Right. I think for everyone listening, and by the way, thank you for there's so many beautiful people watching this morning and or today or whatever time, morning for me, evening
Yes.
for you, you know. Uh,
Yes.
it's to really take time and before you think I would, as a takeaway, before you think about what you think about the world, write down what your thoughts are about yourself. Because as we think of ourselves really creates, like you said, if I how did you say it earlier in the live? It was um basically summarizing, like if we have low thoughts of ourselves, if we constantly say I'm an idiot or I'm this or I'm constantly, well then everything aligns, snaps to that world that will reaffirm those thoughts that we're saying. So I would encourage everyone to write down, what are the thoughts that you say of yourself when something doesn't go the way you planned? What are the first things you say? You say, what can I learn, or what can I release, or I'm this or that, and change that and speak. Take the intention to speak life back into ourselves so that we can at least get to that grounded place to be aware of what are these thoughts. It's a great joy to explore thoughts, but those who are constantly in that self beat up mindset, it's very difficult to even get to that place.
Exactly. And this is such an important thing to do, because to understand that um, you're not your beliefs,
Right.
you're not your thoughts, and you're not your emotions. You're actually the stillness, the full, total, utter potential.
Yes.
That is this, it's still because it's so packed with all the potential that is there. And it's in wave form. So
Hmm.
it needs your attention, it needs your awareness, it needs your light in order to spark into a physical reality. And that is why when you let's say that you say I'm so stupid, that can never be the truth.
Right.
It is a belief system. It is something that comes from the outside. If you're in stillness, you can say that that was not the best thing I've ever done, but it's not the whole world. I'll try again. That's the first step.
Yes.
And
Yes.
when you start feeling comfortable, you can say, well, I don't care about that. It's okay because I am amazing.
Yes. Yes, that's right.
But it has to feel true to you.
Yeah.
So you
Yeah.
can start by saying, I will no longer say these things to myself. I
That's right.
will say that instead. So you can acknowledge by saying the thing, I will no longer say I'm stupid. I will say that I am learning.
Yes. Yes.
It's a difference between those two, but you can use them both in order to shift the frequency upward a little bit,
Yes.
so that the quantum field out there will start listening and say, oh, we're going up. And then it
Yes. That's
starts
right.
going up instead. Yes.
That's
It's
right.
like a machinery. It will not fail you. It
Right.
is bulletproof. It's a
Yes.
question of redefining and becoming aware of the things that are happening within us. This is why when you change, everything else changes.
Yes.
I mean, have you noticed when you change your perspective of something in the reality, then everything changes.
Yes.
Suddenly you see it in a different perspective, and the physical reality changes
Yes.
because you changed your perspective. You start looking at it from a different vantage point.
Right. Right.
So becoming more aware of who we are, the stillness from within, and see it as the potential, not just the stillness. Because what can you do with the stillness? I mean, the world out there is moving all the time. But
Right.
if you can acknowledge that stillness as your full potential, being so full that it cannot move, it's still. And it is for you to look at what in this potential do you want to bring forth.
Yes. Yes.
That's where it is. It's like that is what alignment is.
Yes.
For
And
me anyway. Yeah.
it becomes fun, which this
Yes.
reality should be. If there is a should,
Yes.
it is that this reality should be fun to explore.
Yeah.
And that's from you and I both saying we've gone through massive pain and massive darkness,
Yes.
and we
Yes.
understanding all that to say, wow, on the other side of that contrast, wow, this
You
reality
know,
is incredible.
yes, I think it becomes fun to explore when you know that there are tools you can use in order to ease your own pain.
Hmm.
And the tools are actually for forgiving yourself and forgiving everyone else. Atonement, soothing yourself. Soothing is such a good tool in this world. I I discovered it late in my life. When I was a child, I didn't know how to do it, or I did it without understanding that I'm soothing myself. But as a grown up now, intellectually, I understand that when I am in some kind of pain, this is a signal that I need to soothe myself.
Mm.
That is what it is.
Yes.
Soothe yourself, forgive everyone that you can forgive. Try to release the rest, but stay in that soothing calmness, stillness potential within you. And then start changing the wheels by intentionally looking for the things that you actually do want to explore in this reality. This hour has gone so
Yes.
fast.
Really good. It's really good. Oh my gosh.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for being here, for mirroring my best self here
Oh,
back at me.
I love it. And color coordinated as usual.
As usual, of course,
Oh,
as
it's so
usual.
good.
Yes.
Thank
Yeah.
you, everyone. We will be, Gordana and I are releasing a course that's coming out very soon. We'll be giving more information. So make sure if you're following us, you stay tuned for that, because the course that we are releasing, Key Memories, Undoing Your Past and Rewriting Your Future, is next level.
Amazing.
It is,
Yes.
it's so powerful. I just got chills. Like it is,
Yes.
oh my gosh, it's so good. So thank
Yes.
you, everyone. Thank you, my sweet friend. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Lucas. Thank you, everyone.